Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Welcome to Live from the Filmstrip. I am your host, Christopher A. Padilla. This is a zero episode take two. Uh, I uh, I recorded this last night, and upon re-listening to it, I found that the audio was a little bit lower than I had liked, and that I sounded like a complete muppet. Very angry, very angry and upset, and I didn't want to start this podcast off on the wrong foot, so to speak. So bear with me, people. I just got done eating Thanksgiving lunch, so I'm a little drowsy, full. You may hear birds in the background. You may hear people talking in the background. I apologize. Nothing I can do. Usually record this at night when everybody's in bed. Everything's quiet, but it's unpredictable today because it is Thanksgiving. But it was a very rough first attempt, I have to admit. And to be honest with you right now, I'm just going to be transparent. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I don't. And it was very apparent from that audio that that is very much the case because I said a lot. I said a lot. I said but a lot. I said like a lot. And it was like I was embarrassed listening to it. And I say things twice, I noticed too. So please bear with my speech impediments for the time. I'm working on them. Like I said, I know it's not good podcasting etiquette to air out your, you know, dirty laundry like this. But you know what? Hey, it's my podcast. So that being said, I want to go into what this podcast is going to be, um, the things that are gonna, the goals that I have for this podcast, my hopes I have for this podcast, and this is gonna serve sort of as an olive branch to people who uh, stumble on this podcast or don't really know what sort of like what how how the content is going to be. And I think that as opposed to just releasing the first episode and just putting everything out there, I'd warn people. You know, it's the only fair thing to do because if I warn them now, if anybody has anything to complain about, I can refer them to this episode and we can move on from there. So, if you're a sensitive person, and by sensitive I mean someone who's had tragedy in their life, any sort of trauma in their life that is triggered when someone makes a tasteless joke about your that in relation to whatever trauma you've had or and it's not specifically pointed to you, it's just a joke in general that you overhear and it triggers whatever emotions that trauma brings on. uh if you can't handle jokes being made about sensitive topics or tasteless jokes uh being made, please do yourself a favor, don't listen to this show because my goal is not an entertainer, nor am I a comic by any stretch. But the goal for this show is my attempt to try to be funny, try to be entertaining. And when you're trying to be entertaining and funny, there's going to be a lot of times where you're going to fall flat on your ass and you're going to say something that you think is funny or that I think is funny. And a lot of people might not think it's funny. They might be offended by it, and they might think that that's how I really feel, or that's the type of person I am, you know? So instead of addressing it later, I just wanted to say that this content that I'm going to be producing is going to be in the pursuit of entertaining and to be funny. Okay? Now, if you decide to watch the show anyway, if you're like, okay, I'm a sensitive person, but I want to hear what this guy is talking about, then you've made your decision. You have no right to complain over the content of anything that I say because I have warned you. And I'm going to continue to drill this point down because I don't want there to be any space where anybody can come back at me and say, hey, this guy just threw this out there, didn't give us any warning, didn't give us any sort of, yeah. And I'm going to put warnings in front of videos too, but this is just meant to address everything on an even, serious tone. So that way, people will know that this is how I am when I'm serious. Now, see, I'm saying now. I'm saying now. I don't know what I'm doing, folks. You shouldn't take this seriously. You shouldn't take this podcast seriously. That's the point I'm trying to make. Life is way too serious right now. Okay? We're in the midst of a pandemic. We just got done with essentially a game show host running the country. And if you can't find any sort of humor in that, I don't know what to tell you. Okay, if you're still just trying to be serious in these serious times, then you need medication to make you less serious because I'm trying to keep my own sanity by making a podcast in which I rant and rave about everything that bothers me. Everything and anything that bothers me, anything that happens to me in my life, I'm going to put on the podcast. Now, for the sensitive people, again with the nows, sorry, I apologize. This is the first attempt. This is rough. I'm tired. And I honestly really want to go to sleep and not record and or post. But I will push through. If you're a sensitive person and you're listening to this right now, I need you to understand where I'm coming from with this. Okay? As you can hear, my voice is very clear. Everything sounds very clear. The reason for that is because I invested in this podcast setup, from the audio interface, the mic arm, the shock mount to the mic. All these pieces I purchased so I can produce the best sounding podcasts or projects. And I feel that if I invested all of this money into this setup, I should be able to say whatever I want. And if I were to tailor make shows to please people that have experienced trauma, make a safe podcast so that it's very it's just no. I would feel I wouldn't feel genuine. I wouldn't feel like that's what this podcast is 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 or supposed like I'm it's not supposed to be that. It's supposed to be my perspective on things elevated for entertainment purposes. And that's it. And not for nothing, guys, but there's 7 plus billion people on this planet. If I take your trauma and avoid telling jokes based on your specific trauma, although it's very traumatic for you and it's very real for you, and I'm sorry you've had that traumatic experience plague your life to where you can't hear people talk about it or joke about it or make it without it upsetting you. It's a very horrible way to just live with that. And I'm just saying I'm very empathetic towards that trauma. Everybody has trauma at some point, you know. But if I give your trauma special attention because were offended by anything that I've said, then I'd have to take everybody else's trauma, all 7 billion people. I have to get all their trauma and look through it and weigh in like, okay, I can't say this because these group of people this happened to them, so I can't. And that's not fun. That's not that's ugh. It almost makes me sick to my stomach that is something that it, people have done or people will do. They will tailor make their podcast so that it's safe, and I don't want to do that. So please understand that I'm doing this my way. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But at least I know that I did it and I was 100% me when I was doing it. So moving forward, what is this podcast going to be about? I would assume that you saw film in the title. One can only assume that movies will be discussed on this podcast. Yes and no. Um, Now, for those of you who don't know, I'm a filmmaker. Directing and filmmaking is my main passion, but this pandemic sidelined that. So, the projects I'm going to be making from this point on are just probably going to be just small things here or there. My main focus is going to be on this podcast and a few other podcasts that I have lined up. But for this particular one, it's going to be just a gumbo of different podcasts. And it all depends on the type of if I can get a guest, if I can't get a guest, more likely it's just going to be me ranting about something that happened to me, something that I find annoying, something I see. For example, the first official episode, uh, I'm gonna talk about the 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 new podcasts that have popped up since this pandemic started. Podcasts, radio shows, everything. Everything that I've seen on my feed, that I've seen in the groups that I'm in on Facebook. And I'm going to be sort of like digging into them a little bit because I'll save it for the podcast, but you know what I mean. Like I'm going to call out just some of the shit that I've seen. Anyway, that's gonna be part of it. That's gonna be one. Now, the first 10 minutes, um, there's this. There's this policy on YouTube for like the first 10 minutes of a show, and you can't say certain words, and that's that's weird. That's very peculiar. That's a rule. And I found out about this rule through your mom's house podcast known as the Josh Potter Show, where he puts a little clock at the corner to indicate like he has 10 minutes to be clean, sort of. And so I thought, hey, film's in the name. Why don't I give, in the first 10 minutes, a brief summary of a new flick that I just checked out? It's not going to be a full review. It's just going to be a brief 10-minute summary of my thoughts on it, how I felt, things that I noticed, and it'll end with me recommending it or not recommending it. Later on, I hope to make an official movie review podcast, but that's down the line. So, there's going to be rants, as well as promotion for. Excuse me, guys. Oh, that's bad. That's bad. I had a beer, and ooh, bad combo with turkey. But it's mainly going to be rants and promotion for things that I'm using, free promotion for things that I enjoy using and I think that need to be talked about more. When I have a guest, it's going to be just a conversation as if the mics aren't even here. We're just going to talk about whatever. Could be serious, could be joking. Most likely it's going to be joking. The point is, don't take anything I say seriously. Except maybe this. This is I'm kind of serious, but I'm kind of joking. I'm kind of just want to make sure I get all my points through clear and there's no muddled points or whatever. But that's it. That's about it. Um like I said, I want people to listen to this podcast and find the humor in the rants. Find the humor in the the things I talk about, the things I complain about, because I think we all have complaints. We all have problems. We all have shit that we find annoying that other people, if we were to tell them, they'll be like, "Dude, you're a fucking nutter," you know. And I'm just putting my uh the things that bother me, I'm putting those on Front Street. So, and I'm elevating it. I'm going to be fucking ranting and raving, and it's just going to be fun. I might make myself laugh because it's hard because I've done that. I've made myself laugh multiple times hearing myself because I've been trying to do voices. That's another thing. I can do a few voices and I've never really heard them. I mean, when I say them, of course I hear it, but I've never really listened to them on a microphone like this. And hearing them, boy, I just crack myself up. So I think when I record voices, I may have to do it without the headphones. That's the only way I think I can get it done. The other way, I don't know. It's gonna take practice. But yeah, please, guys, I welcome everybody. But if you find like South Park humor, and I'm not saying that the quality of comedy is on the level of South Park. That is not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is I'm going to attempt to to possibly say something that is pushing it a little bit, you know? But I'm doing it to try to get a laugh. That's what I'm doing. Like a basketball player, you know? They don't always make their shots, right? Just like a comedian or anybody trying to be funny. Sometimes you don't get a laugh. Sometimes you get anger. But I just need you guys to give me just a little bit of breathing room, you know? A little bit of just, hey, let's give this a chance, you know? Just, yeah, he said something a little racy. Not racy, like racial. I'm just talking, that's weird. It sounds weird, racy. Because you would just, because when I hear that, it sounds like the person who's saying that is referring to something racial. I don't know. It's just weird. I know that's not what it means. It just seems like an odd word that could mean multiple things. But anyway, I could say something controversial in an attempt to be funny, and I may edit it out if it's too much. I probably won't. Like I'm not gonna. I'm not even gonna edit this. I'm gonna put it out like this and see what happens. And on the racial front, I may say some racial stuff uh about the races I am because I'm allowed to. Okay, I'm Hispanic. I'm also Italian. They got a few fun racial slurs that you can say. You know. Um, I think I'm French too. I mean, there's not really. I mean, that's kind of boring. You know. Like, what can you say about French? You know, nothing. You eat snails? Oh, yeah, you know. But uh, but yeah, you know, if I do, it's just gonna be, you know, about me, or if I have a close friend, you know, just busting balls. You know, that's what this is. It's just busting balls, shooting the shit, and not worrying about who it offends or doesn't offend. It's just a 100% unfiltered, safe space. But that's about it. I think that's a wrap. I wow, I'm finishing at around the same time the first episode finished. So, thank you guys for listening to me rant this whole 22 minutes. If there's anybody left, thank you. Um and another thing, last thing, please don't take anything I say personally. Okay? Cuz I know this is going on Facebook. This is going to be going in groups that I'm in. And the first episode, I'm talking about people's podcasts that I've seen. I'm not going to call out names. I'm just going to, you know, call out things that I've seen that are similar with each of them. And if your podcast is doing or is doing the things that I'm ranting about, don't take it personally, please. Please. And I'm giving permission for everybody, like everybody who has a podcast, feel free to take jabs at me. I'm fine with it. I'm cool. This is not that serious. Life is not this serious. I'm literally you know, to just please just let me do me. Let me get through the growing pains of starting a new podcast, and I think we might have something pretty fun that I hope will connect with people. But in the meantime, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter, Film H Studios. You can follow me on Twitch, Film H Studios. Uh, there's nothing really going to be on there. There may be some. I may put uncensored episodes on there. I don't know. We'll see when we get to that. But yeah, happy Thanksgiving. Thanks for sticking with it this long, and I hope you stick around for episode 1. Thank you so much. This is Christopher A. Padilla signing off.